So today, our class will be about energy policy and government strategy. Okay. Kita dah mula lah ni. This is all because last week we look at the economy, okay, and today we're going to look a little bit on the policy, right? First things first, of course, is the learning outcome. Okay. The learning outcome for today is very, very simple, I would say. You just need to be able to discuss the establishment of government-owned companies involved in the supply of energy to the people. Okay, so it's very simple, kan? So, of course, sebab tajuk ni it's quite simple. Not to say simple lah, because we are looking more into policies and stuff, but the class won't be too long. Okay, so sebab tu yesterday punya class pun saya cancel because we can cover this in basically about 1 hour or less, right? So please bear with me sekejap hopefully we can, you know, cover everything as soon as we can, right? So first things first, when you look at this, okay, ada nama-nama, there's so many different brands kan. What do you think is the similarities? Kau tahu tak ini company apa? Anyone?
Company salurkan tenaga.
Tadi kau apa?
Company salurkan like sumber tenaga tu.
Sumber tenaga. Okay, kita ada apa yang tenaga kat situ Tenaga
EV.
nasional. Definitely tenaga nasional, okay. Apa lagi?
Petronas.
Petronas. Wow, betul-betul. That is also true. Okay, so yelah, when we look at the learning outcome just now kan, kita nak tengok on the establishment of government-owned companies. Okay, so itulah dia, theme dia. These are all government-owned companies, or you know, more commonly known as GLC. Ada GLIC. GLC is government-linked company. GLIC, government-linked investment company. Okay, so kalau when we talk about TNB, tentang Petronas, okay, TM, ini semua GLC. And kalau kita tengok Khazanah Nasional, TNB, these are all investment companies. Okay, they are the ones who invest the money in the country in order to make some profit. Okay, so similarity dia itulah, these are all GLC. So actually, yang ni yang very visible, but there's so many more. We have hundreds of GLCs and GLICs, okay, in Malaysia. Not only this one, okay. And I think that already answered yang mana yang related to energy, yes, Tenaga Nasional and Petronas. So for today, we will cover a bit on this two. Okay, so please bear with me. Before we go through that, we will look a little bit on the energy policy. Okay, because energy policy is basically the underlying policy with regards to energy in Malaysia. Kita ada banyak. So it's not only kalau yang the latest one, of course, is this one, National Energy Efficiency Action Plan. Okay. And this covers 2016 until 2025. Okay. However, it's good to also look back about what has been happening before. Okay, and it might give us some insights as well. So first, before the Petroleum Development Act, okay, so any gas company macam Shell ataupun Exxon, they are free to come to Malaysia and develop, the oil resources. Okay, so if there is an oil reserve off the shores of Sabah, for example, okay, all these foreign companies, which can share semua tu, they can just come and make some agreement and cakap, okay, we will, we will develop the facility, maintain it, okay, and we might give you like 10% of the profit. Okay, so it's something like that, something similar. So it becomes a situation where anyone can just come in and make use of our resources. Okay, so in this kind of situation, that is why the country, well, Malaysia, we come up with Petroleum Development Act in 1974. Okay? So basically, in this act, it's what gives Petronas the right to explore. They can develop, they can produce the petroleum resources in Malaysia. Okay? So this is basically the governing act that gives Petronas, that gave birth to Petronas lah, basically. Right? Because before that, there was no Petronas. So anyone can just come in. Right? So we have this Petroleum Development Act 1974. Right? And then 1 year after that, Malaysia came up with National Petroleum Policy 1975. Okay? And this is basically to regulate. So this is more about the regulation of downstream oil and gas industry. Right? And then in 1979, ada pula National Energy Policy. The National Energy Policy is more towards, if you guys remember, I've already covered this in electricity lecture, right? So it's basically on ensuring that we have energy security, making sure that it's cost effective, and then it's efficient in utilization. And in the end, it's always to minimize environmental impact. That is NEP, National Energy Policy. Okay. And then, of course, if you guys remember about the gas crisis, then that gives the hint, or rather, the push for all countries basically to deal with what happens when oil and gas is no longer there. And that is when we came up with National Depletion Policy in 1980. And this is basically about to prolong the lifespan of our national oil and gas resources. If we have different types of policy, macam-macam dah ada buat to make sure that we have our own oil, we have our own gas, how to make it last for a very long time. Okay, the next is for fuel policy. Okay, for fuel ni apa benda je? So actually this is, in power plant, okay, I've been talking about the different raw materials, or rather the feed to the power plant kan. Yeah? So usually we highlight coal, right? Apart from coal, there's also other types of fuels as well. It can be oil, can be gas. Okay? And at the same time, in coal fuel policy, they highlight the importance of hydroelectric. So ada 4 types of fuels. Okay? Coal, gas, oil, dengan hydro. Okay? But then, with the environmental impact, and then people are looking at the fossil fuel is something that is very limited. Okay? That is when we highlight okay, we realize the importance of renewable energy. Okay, so in 2001, we upgraded the 4 fuel policy into 5 fuel policy. Okay, so now it becomes 5, and the 5th one is renewable energy. Yeah, so this may come from solar, it may come from wind, it may come from biomass. Yeah, but basically, essentially, it is renewable fuel or the energy part. Yeah, and then of course, we the policy then, it goes with what is currently expected, okay, from the world. Okay, so of course, we look at the renewable energy being more and more relevant. That's why the subsequent acts are more focused towards renewable energy. So kita ada in 2009, National Renewable Energy Policy and Action Plan. Okay. Lepas the Renewable Energy Act in 2011, and then National Energy Efficiency Action Plan. Okay, so this is the latest one, not to say the final one. So in here, we look at the utilization of green technology into the existing renewable energy system. Okay, so very brief outlook on the various energy policies and historical, timeline, basically, right? So politics aside, okay, usually in class, in academic discussion, we look at things very objectively. Okay, so this guy here, okay, our previous prime minister. So what I want to highlight here is actually the Paris Agreement. Okay, so we have committed. So we don't. We look at this not by at the individual, okay, but we look at it as the country's commitment. So in 2015, okay, Malaysia had already agreed to cut their greenhouse gas emission, okay, to such level where it is acceptable at that time. So this is basically, if you read about the Paris Agreement, okay, all the countries who are involved, okay, and they signed the Paris Agreement, they have already agreed that they will reduce their emissions. Okay, so that basically is something. Okay, when you look at the many different approaches of renewable energy, okay, there's so many things nowadays. Kalau kita tengok, people can install solar panels, right? When you look at it at a very individual level, okay, it makes sense. It's about, okay, the renewable energy, maybe it's cheaper, it's safer, so you can opt for that. Okay, but if you think about industry, right? For example, kalau you are a business owner, okay, and you have the option. Option pertama is you just use electricity biasa, okay, harga macam tu juga, right? And you have a secure supply. Secondly, you have another option yang gunakan alternative energy, for example. So alternative energy tapi harga lagi mahal. So as a business owner, yang mana you akan pilih sebenarnya? Kalau korang lah, kalau korang jadi pemilik kilang, and korang hasilkan, you are manufacturing something and you need your electricity punya consumption, okay, it's a certain level yang you memang akan bayar, okay, a portion of your capital untuk bayar your electricity or energy consumption. Ada dua option. Option yang murah tapi guna fossil fuel, Option nombor 2 mahal. Tapi dia pakai renewable energy. Mana korang akan pilih?
Yang mahal.
Yang mahal. Kenapa tu?
Selamatkan environment
Selamatkan
juga.
environment.
Yes,
Okay
tapi
lah.
mahal.
Okay lah Ria, kalau Ria buka company, bolehlah jadi stakeholder. Very environmental conscious. Okay. So, it depends. So, kalau kita dapat, if we manage to, you know, in the end, kita punya generation, then semua berfikir macam Ria. So, we think about the environment instead of the business punya mind, then so it's easy tau. Something yang maybe it's not a hard choice. Okay, but in a situation kalau orang tu memang dia tengok just numbers, figures and facts kan, dia tengok the numbers, mahal lah, tak nak lah, I will go for yang murah, right? So macam mana kita nak make sure, or how you want to educate these people to in the end change their mindset. Okay, I know that we talked about previously pasal behavior change kan, ada program-program semua tu kan. So that is one way, but the other way is if we have certain policy or regulation. Okay, so kita dah ada dah macam okay, kita bagi option dekat business terpencil. Contoh saya menteri tenaga Pejam mata je lah, maybe lah kan. So saya cakap dekat business owner tadi, okay, yang option yang mahal tu still ada 2 option. Okay, option murah, option mahal. Tapi option yang mahal, you can apply for extra. Contohnya lah. So diorang boleh minta pelepasan cukai. Okay. And I am in the position to offer such thing because I am a policy maker. Okay, so kita ada authority in that sense, right? And that authority comes from things like this. So macam memang kita dah, our country has already made this intention public kan. Kita dah cakap dah by hook or by crook by 2030, we need to achieve something. So that is where the policymakers can make use of something like this to change the policy and make sure that we can change something, right? So go from top to bottom, right? Or as individuals, kita work from bottom up. So we all have our parts to play basically, right? So dalam 11th Malaysia Plan, so 11 Malaysia Plan ni, if you guys know, kan kalau macam setiap tahun ada dia keluar pasal budget kan. Okay. So budget ni is basically how the country will spend, so basically spend the money lah. So untuk pembangunan ke, untuk apa-apa je, right? So in 11 Malaysia Plan, which is in the previous one, which is 2016 sampai 2020. Okay, dia ada 5 benda kat sini. What is S ni? S ni is the strategic thrust. Dia ada S1 sampai S5. So kita boleh nampak there are a lot of energy punya elements. Okay, so coordination and collaboration in the energy sector, right? Security, okay, growth, diversity untuk electricity subsector, okay? And lastly sustainability, efficiency and reliability. Okay, so we can see that the country, okay, we know that energy is something very, very important, okay, and we have to do something. Okay, so it's there in the plan, in the policy. Okay. It only comes to specific things, what can be done, right? And how you want to do that, right? So just to highlight that lah. So in policy, energy has always been one of the biggest consideration apart from others lah. So of course, yang paling besar is on the economy, because economy is, it's something that measures, okay, the growth ataupun whether the country is healthy or not, healthy in the sense of the economy. Okay. So disebabkan adanya all these policies, okay, and also increasing awareness about the negativity of fossil fuels, okay, we can see that the country is changing. Okay, so the potential, if we compare 2014 dengan 2020, this is on the renewable energy punya capacity. So it used to be only about 200 megawatt. Okay. Now it doubles almost 10 times to 2000 megawatt. Banyak tu. Okay, so previously, and you can see the mix is changing as well. So before, it used to be only solar. Okay. But now we see biomass. Biomass is also increasing. And that's a good thing because we have a lot of biomass resources. Okay. And of course, solar memang definitely something very easy because it's very easy. Then you just plug and play. Okay, you just have your solar panel, okay, and you can install that, and you can immediately use electricity. Okay. Cuma, in the end, okay, what happens to the solar panel? Okay, so solar panel punya management is also something that is very relevant lah untuk difikirkan, because it doesn't last forever. Okay, usually, of course, things are improving, but used to be only can be useful for up to 15 or 20 years. Okay, so after that, it's definitely going to be, you're going to have a situation where you have a lot of solar waste solar energy waste, okay, in the form of these panels and stuff. Okay, so we have to think about what's next as well. So we have solar, kita ada biogas, we have biomass, mini hydro, and you can see that it's changing. And it's a very good thing. Yeah, right. So that is briefly on how the policy shapes the country, okay, and how the energy situation is changing along with it. Okay, so we go into specifically into the government-owned companies, right, and about the establishment of government of these companies. So for this class, we are focusing on two, okay, Petronas and TNB. But anyway, for TNB, kita dah belajar dulu kan, also in electricity, okay. But I just want to highlight a few things regarding to the history. Okay. Might give you some, good insight into what is happening, right? So Petronas, kita start dengan Petronas, right? Petronas, actually the name is Petroleum Nasional Berhad. Okay, so that is shortened into Petronas, and it's Malaysia's fully integrated oil and gas multinational. So it's a multinational company. If you guys don't know this, so Petronas is, I think, the first most profitable company in Asia, right? Because, and even if you think about GDP, okay, Petronas, well, Petronas, they sort of, give around 50% to 40% of Malaysia's GDP. Okay, so you can imagine how much that is. Okay, so the total, spending okay, of the whole country is basically comes from Petronas. Okay? So the vision is to be a leading oil and gas multinational of choice, yeah, and the mission is this. Okay, so it basically also relates back to the Petroleum Act of 1974, which is when it is being first being incorporated, right? So just a brief history. Okay. So di sikit je, jangan risau. Okay, and this one tak masuk dalam exam pun. Okay, but I just want to highlight. So, before 1974, macam yang tadi saya sebut, we don't really have a specific company yang uruskan our resources, our oil and gas resources. Right? So, Sarawak, back then lah, Sarawak punya chief minister, okay, Tun Abdul Rahman Yaakob is among those who proposed for a custodian of Malaysia's oil and gas reserve. So that's when in 1974, you have this act, okay, and this act granted rights to Petronas to manage and exploit whatever reserve. So if you guys don't know this, okay, this act allows, well, basically gives Petronas the permission for all of Malaysia's reserve, even those that are undiscovered yet. Okay, so imagine if in 5 years' time, there is an oil reserve discovered somewhere, okay, in Malaysia. Right? Definitely Petronas will have the rights for that. Okay. And Tun Abdul Razak, he appointed Tengku Razali Hamzah as the first chairman of Petronas when it was first incorporated. And the first office was in Jalan Dato' On in KL. Right. So in 1981, first petrol station in TPDI. Okay, and it had its first appraisal well in Duyong gas field with 200 kilometers off Terengganu coast. Okay, so this is the first ever lah, basically in that is owned by our people, because previously was only by other oil companies, okay, more established ones like Shell. You know, Shell has like hundreds of years of tradition and history. Okay, so they are very, very experienced. Okay, and 1981 is the first basically for us. Right? And 1983 baru ada refinery plant. Okay, and that was in Perth, Terengganu. Right? 1992 Twin Towers. Okay, and you know 1995 baru ada so previously it's called Institute of Technology Petronas, but now it's UTP. Right, and that is when in 1997 they received invitation by the government to set up a university. So the Institute of Technology Petronas ni they upgraded into a university in 1997. Right, so basically 1999, okay, the Petronas Twin Towers was officially opened, okay, by Tun Dr. Mahathir, right? And here, okay, so this is quite recent. So Petronas becomes the world's first to produce LNG from 2 floating facilities. Okay, so it's something that is very ambitious actually by Petronas about the floating facility ni, it's not easy tau. So it's like, so imagine kalau you have a oil reserve somewhere yang very inaccessible. Okay, so usually what happens is they just leave it. Okay? This is not saying Petronas, but it's the industry. Okay, so kalau tempat tu is too inaccessible, okay, diorang tak boleh buat refinery yang atas platform tu. So they will just leave it. They won't operate it per se. Okay? But with this floating punya facility, Petronas are able to get access, okay, to all these previously inaccessible punya location. Because it's floating and they can just deploy kat mana-mana, they just pergi je. Right? And this is fairly new. So it started in 2012, dia punya, you know, the building of it. Okay? And only now, 2021, baru it start its first operation. Right? Now, siapa kenal ni siapa? Siapakah ini? Who is this?
F1 driver.
Betul. Nama dia ingat tak?
Hamilton?
Yes. Lewis Hamilton. Yay. Okay. So Lewis Hamilton, of course, is so what I want to highlight here ialah this one lah. So Petronas juga terlibat dalam F1. Okay, and so actually they start in 1995 tau. So kalau, I don't know, are you guys born yet? 1995, korang dah lahir ke?
99.
99 right? Okay. So kalau korang buka, korang search lah kan, Petronas. So before, sekarang ni dia dengan Mercedes. So kalau nampak dekat baju ni pun nampak kan, this is Mercedes punya brand or logo. Tapi before this, sebenarnya dia dengan Red Bull Sauber. Okay, in 1995. Lepas tu dia sampailah 2009. And then in 2009, you know, the company was acquired by, you know, Daimler. Okay, and Daimler ni, eventually the team becomes Mercedes GP Petronas. Okay, and lastly is this one. So sebenarnya, they are very good tau. The team, diorang win for like 5 straight years. Okay, so ada Lewis Hamilton. Another one is, siapa tahu? Lagi seorang driver Petronas, this team. Saya tak ingat. Nico Rosberg. Okay, so ada dua orang. Kita ada Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. So diorang ni, they won, kalau you guys follow F1 punya sport, dia ada dua. So first is the driver, yang tu lah yang the racing part kan. The other one, okay, is actually dia punya constructor. So kalau korang tengok Ferrari lawan Mercedes lawan ni, okay. So dia ada dua competition sebenarnya. So during 2014 sampai 2018, so this team, Mercedes GP Petronas ni, dia menang for 5 straight years. Okay. And the team, well, of course lah, sebab Petronas is one of the sponsor. So they credited Petronas punya fuel, Petronas punya lubricant and coolant technology, okay, in developing the, you know, basically the winning formula lah. Okay, so they won because one of the reason is Petronas punya all these fuels and lubricants. Okay, and that is very it's a very good thing sebenarnya. You know, if kadang ada je orang cakap, kenapa, why do we spend money to sponsor such sports? And so we have to think also about promoting the brand. Okay, so when you have things like this, okay, you won F1 Formula for like 5 years. Okay, people will start to link, okay, oh, okay, Petronas punya ni is quite good. Okay, so they will start to choose Petronas, right? So in the end, kita kena fikir lah. So basically, the earnings from Petronas, okay, apa-apa, what are their, you know, the sales, etc. Yeah, their earnings, it comes back to the country. Okay, because remember, Petronas is a GLC. Okay, so I'm not highlighting the political bits ke semua tu. That's another thing. Okay, but we need to look at the situation as well. So when Petronas makes money, it's good for the country. It's good for our economy because the earning that we get from the tax that Petronas pays basically sustaining the country. Okay, that's why bila harga minyak jatuh, okay, it's a very big issue sebenarnya. We don't really feel it, okay, but it is a very big issue. So there is a trickle down effect. Okay, kurang duit for any types of projects, the government tak ada duit, right? All comes back from this kind of situation. Okay. Last week we looked at the volatility of crude oil price. So dan kita tengok kan what is the effect towards the stock market. The stock market is the one of the main indicator of economy. So kita boleh tengok kalau stock market jatuh, it means that at that moment our country loses money. Okay, that's the easiest way we can think about it. Right? So if crude oil, harga oil mahal, okay, you can get the benefit, indirectly, okay, but we have to start thinking about the country as well, right? Panjang pula lah cakap kan. Okay, tak apa. This one very quick, okay, so if you guys are interested, so dia ada banyak lah. So these links I got from Dr. Faiz. Okay, Dr. Faiz was the one who teach this subject previously. Okay, so we have a few where you can read about the controversies. Okay, for example, the first one ni dia pasal in Canada, Petronas, they want to build this pipeline untuk ONG, but of course, bila ada pipeline, there's always the environmental issue. Okay, and that is where in Canada, this is a very big issue. So they were saying like this project cannot go on, etc., etc. Okay, so if you want to read about it, you can go to this link, right? It's also political controversy, and Petronas also embarks on CSR. So CSR is corporate social responsibilities. They are involved in a few, not a few, so a lot of projects related to sustainability. Okay. So these are the links where you can look at that if you'd like. Right? And of course, the challenges. Okay. Of course, one of the biggest thing is the sinking crude oil price. Okay, like I mentioned before, but still, of course, on the politics, right? And of course, what subsidy. Okay. So in my opinion, okay, subsidy is necessary, okay, but it there's pros and cons, right? So we have to really, if you really want to discuss this, we have to think on the many various perspectives as well. So that is about Petronas. Okay, now we go very quickly again on TMB. Okay, TMB, we've already covered in electricity punya lecture, okay, but not too much on the company itself. That is more towards, how the electricity is transmitted, etc. Okay, so here we will look at what TNB is. So TNB is actually the largest electricity utility in Malaysia. Okay, and if you guys didn't know this, we also have a presence, an international presence, and regional ones as well. Okay, so we have presence in the UK, Kuwait, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, India, and Indonesia. So of course, we go next, looking at the purpose. Okay, together we brighten lives through innovative and sustainable solutions towards a better world. So I like this, right? Sustainable solutions. Okay, because we really if it's there in the purpose, then the company must show it in their actions. Right? And we see that TMB does make a lot of you know, impacts, the environmental effects. They are aware of what they do have, okay? But at the same time, how to make it sustainable. Okay? Because we have to remember sustainability is not only in terms of the environment, okay? It has to be socially, okay, and economically as well. Okay? So aspiration, of course, leading provider of sustainable energy solution in Malaysia and internationally. Right? And these are the core values. Okay? So very quickly on that, brief history. Again, similar to Petronas, okay, just want to highlight this. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lokyu. Okay, we have Jalan Lokyu. Okay, so Lokyu and Tambu Sami Pilai, okay, they are, you know, they're very active in the mining industry. Right? So in 1894, sebenarnya diorang ni lah yang pertama kali install an electric generator. Okay? Because they want to operate their mines. Okay? So they need this energy from the generator. Okay? So they were actually the first to use electric pumps for mining in Malaya. So back then it was Malaya. Right? And then when they have this, that's when it's upgraded a bit, okay, to street lighting in that particular Rawang town. Okay, so Rawang is the first town in Malaysia that has access to electricity, okay, and that was in 1894. Right? So very quickly after that, 1 year after that, KL received its first electricity supply. I mean the railway stations. Okay? And in 1900, we have the first power station in Raub. Okay. So a lot of things happened, right? But in 1949, okay, CEB was established. So CEB is Central Electricity Board. Okay. And along this time, there were a lot of different power stations being built. Okay. So CEB, bila they were established, they become the owner of 34 power stations, okay, with the capacity of 2.28 megawatt. So this was like how many years was this? 70 years almost ago. So kalau korang ingat tadi the changes in renewable energy, okay, this was in 2014 and around the same lah, around 2 megawatt. Okay, that was for the whole country though. So we can, of course, the consumption will increase definitely. Okay, but just think about it. So at that time, their punya asset is close to around $30 million. Okay, and then, but if you really think about it, during this time, we are still under British. Okay, so CEB ni, dia penuh dengan expatriates, right? There was no local officers there. So around that time, sebab in this time juga, we are working towards independence. Okay? So starting from 1951, okay, we start to send students, engineers, we send them overseas to train them, okay, to manage the electricity systems in Malaysia. Okay, because we want to replace these expatriates. Okay, because we are moving towards independence, so we want local people in the board. Okay, but we don't have the capacity. The human capital is not there. They are not ready yet. Okay, so that was when a lot of people were sent out to train overseas. And after they were trained, they would come back, right? And eventually in 1964, Raja Zainal become the first Malaysian appointed to CEB General Manager. So that was a long time, eh? So this is even after independence. Dia baru ada one of our own Malaysian people heading the CEB. Okay. So CEB ni in 65 it was renamed as National Electricity Board. Okay. So NEB. Right? And NEB ni it's under the government lah. Right? So it's not like PNB now. This was before when it was Lembaga Elektrik Malaysia. Right? So I don't know, maybe it was not your parents' generation, but maybe so it could be some of your parents might have worked with lembaga before, okay, or parents of someone that you know. Okay, so basically during that time, okay, of course with the electricity, the increasing demand, it's also changing the system, it becomes more complex, right? And in 1984, capacity dah increased to around 1,300 megawatt, right? And consumers sekarang dah ada 1.9 million people, revenue of around 2.2 billion, fixed assets close to 5.5 billion. So banyak. It's a very big industry. There's a lot of money there, okay? Tapi of course, nampak kat sini kan fixed asset. So this is not in terms of money, this is asset. So what are the facilities, okay, benda-benda yang ada, the buildings, everything. So it comes close to 5.5 billion. However, in 1988, the government announced the decision to privatize. Okay, remember just now, lembaga tadi, National Electricity Board was under the government. Okay. And then we have the privatization, right? So privatization inilah yang membawa kepada GLC. Okay, so instead of it being directly under the government, okay, we privatize specific industries, okay, in order to make it more competitive. Okay, because even though, for example, saya just share, even though my segi revenue 2.2 billion, okay, lepas tu ada fixed asset close to 5.5 billion, but they also need to borrow, okay, in terms of, if you guys are familiar with how a business works, okay, the day-to-day operation, this sebenarnya involves a lot of borrowing, okay, so the thought behind privatization is basically, okay, we want to remove the possibility of the government being bankrupt. Okay, so what happens is if suddenly all the people, or not the, in this sense, not the people, so banks and also countries, okay, what happens if those countries requested for Malaysia to pay back immediately? Okay, we are going to be bankrupted. Right. So to avoid the situation, that's why they go towards privatization, okay? Because they say that if it's a private company, right, the money, it will not bankrupt the country. It's one way of looking at it. Right? So in 1990, TNB was officially proclaimed as the heir and successor to NEB. So NEB tadi yang LLM tu, National Electricity Board, in the end itulah yang menjadi TNB. TNB became a private company wholly owned by the government, right? And on the same day, this person, so Tan Sri Datuk Haji Ani bin Arofi, was appointed chairman. Okay, so surprisingly dah sampai conclusion. Okay. So hari ni punya kelas, yeah, it's more about, of course, we want to look at government-owned companies, kan? But in my opinion, it's good for you to also look at why these companies are, well, first, how they came into being, okay? And then how they, in their capacity, is doing something in the energy sector. Okay. So basically, the key challenges of energy in Malaysia, okay, you have a lot of different things that, you know, we might need to think about. Okay. Transparency, industry structure, economic growth, macam-macam ada. Okay. So it doesn't only cover only this. There's so many more, right? And eventually, how you want to tackle these challenges is you need to have a strong policy. You kena ada policy because it's basically what governs the country. Okay? We can have individual punya motivation, okay, to protect the environment. Okay? That's why we have activists. We have people like they are tadi. And so it's can be done, okay, and work together, right? But we need to have strong policy to make sure that the country moves in the right direction. Okay? And basically the goals are, you know, of course, to meeting demand. Demand keeps on increasing, okay? And we need to think about how you want to meet that demand, okay? Of course, in energy security, what's going to happen if suddenly the ONG is gone? Okay? Or what if there's another gas crisis? So real price, of course, this is a matter of contention. Okay, whether subsidized ke, tak subsidized ke, okay, that is something that is still being discussed up to this day. Okay, and of course, to me, the most important thing is sustainability. Okay, how sustainable that energy system is, right, and how we want to be remembered by the future generation. Are we leaving the world as something so damaged, okay, or we are giving them a chance as well?